Am I the a-hole for telling my dad I owe him nothing and throwing his words back at him during an argument? The gist is this. I lost my mom to a long-term health issue when I was 10. The cost of treatment drained my parents' finances, and it was just dad and me after mom died. No extended family. Dad started dating when I was 12 and he met Jane. And after a few months, he told me her son had a form of brain cancer and was very sick, and that they were getting married and he would be helping to take care of her son. We went from 2 in a tiny 2-bedroom house to 4 in a tiny 2-bedroom house, and me sharing with a terminally ill toddler I didn't know. We had to make so many changes. No more takeout, which was a once-a-month treat before that. I had to stop my only extracurricular activity. No friends over because noise bothered him. No space that was just mine. Had no extra money for celebrating birthdays and Christmas. When I was 15, Dad and I got into a huge argument because I was never home and was always saying no to helping Jane take care of her son. When I told him how much I hated the situation, he looked me in the eye and told me to grow up. He also told me that I was old enough to understand that life wasn't always easy or fun, and that a rougher life can build character. He told me we grew our family, which was a good thing, and one of the consequences of that sometimes is having less, but that it was worth it for the extra love. I told him it was BS. He told me I was not his whole life, and he was not going to stop doing what he wanted to do because of me. Then he told me to never ever say anything negative around his stepson because he was a kid and didn't need to know I resented him for being sick. After that talk, I was even more distant and left before I turned 18 right after graduation, couch surfed until I went to college, and I didn't stay in touch. When I was 19, I heard that Dad's stepson had died. In college, I met my wife and we got married this past June. Then in November, my dad showed up and told me he wanted to talk, but I shut the door in his face. He kept showing up where I was to talk, and after getting annoyed with him, I agreed to meet him for coffee. He told me how he'd ended up divorced from Jane, and how his stepson had died, and he looked disappointed when he learned I knew. Then he told me how he'd been struggling a lot and how he was hoping I could help him out. I laughed in his face and told him he had some nerve. He mentioned how he'd spent a lot of money on finding me and he wanted us to repair things, but he also needed my help. I told him no way. He became angry and told me he was my dad and was always there for me and I owed him. I told him I owed him nothing, and I threw most of his words back in his face, including that he needed to grow up and that he was not my whole life and would not stop me from doing what I want. It became a bit of a scene, then told me at my age I should have grown more compassion. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your dad sacrificed you so that he could bang. And as things turned out, the family he created wasn't all that real after all. He was just a patsy to help take care of a sick kid. You owe him nothing. Wife probably left as soon as her son was buried. That prospect sounds so real that I stopped. I'm a mom, and if one of my kids died, I wouldn't want to stay married or be able to even look at someone who just threw their child away, when I did everything I could to keep mine alive. Once the haze of it was over, Opie's dad probably disgusted her. It doesn't sound like she was too worried about him throwing his kid away when hers was sick. Not the a-hole. Your dad quite literally showed up after he had nothing left but you. That's a huge red flag, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. My dad is just like this. He left when my mom died at 17 and slept around with other women while she was in the hospital. Then he wasted all her life insurance money in a Rolex, and he's been trying to contact me for years. Last year, I finally agreed to meet with him against my better judgment. And the second thing he said to me after saying I've gotten pretty was that he needed help paying off his car. I immediately stood up and left. Huge not the a-hole OP. You owe him nothing. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my daughter her education fund money? I, 54 male, have 2 children, 23 female and 21 male, with my wife, 52 female. When the kids were young, my parents set up education funds for both of them, which was very generous of them. My wife and I always expected our kids to attend college and then graduate school, as we have done. I have a PhD, my wife has a master's. Because of this, we decided not to use the funds for our kids' undergrad degrees and did not tell them about the money. My daughter has always been more into the liberal arts, while my son is more of a STEM guy. My wife and I worried about her ability to find a job, but she insisted on studying music and film in college. She was accepted to some top schools and chose to attend a rather expensive one, but she had scholarships to cover almost all of her tuition. Everything else, plus living expenses, was her responsibility. She lived in a very small apartment shared with friends in a not-so-nice area far from campus, but she was fine and learned how to budget effectively. After graduating, she luckily found a job that doesn't pay extremely well, but she enjoys, and scrapped the idea of grad school. My son decided to do engineering, and he also expressed that he had no interest in grad school. My wife and I were disappointed but accepted it since at this point, he is already all set up with a very good job when he completes school. Since he did not receive as many scholarships as his sister, we decided to use his education fund to cover his tuition and living expenses. He was able to get a large and nice apartment of his own close to the school, which is important since his classes are so demanding and he needs a comfortable space to work. My daughter was confused and asked how he could afford this, and he told her about the education fund. She called us and asked why she didn't have one, and we told her she did. We just didn't use it because we hoped she would attend grad school. She seemed hurt by this and asked if there was any way she could have the money now. We explained that there would be a fee to simply withdraw the money for non-education uses, and if we chose to do that, it would belong to her grandparents, so they could put it towards their own use. She's been quiet and short when answering our texts and hasn't answered our calls at all since then. I know that it seems unfair to her, but it's not really her money in the first place, and she's no longer in college. Plus, her brother only received it for educational purposes and it wouldn't be right for her to just have it to spend now. Am I the a-hole? So let me get this right. Your daughter attended college and had a scholarship. Your son attended college with no scholarship. You chose not to let your daughter use her college fund for everything that her scholarship didn't cover, and you let your son use his for everything. The college fund you said wasn't even her money, but isn't yours either. What exactly do you plan to do with her college money? You're the a-hole for this. Not to mention a college fund her grandparents set for her. He's basically stealing her money. Major you're the a-hole. You're the a-hole, and I'm surprised between your PhD and master's degrees you couldn't figure that out. Two highly educated fools. Education does not equate intelligence or self-awareness. You're the a-hole. Oh dear, just goes to show you that having PhD and a master's does not neither make you a good parent nor smart in any way. Also, graduate degrees are cheaper, especially PhDs. Most doctoral programs pay you to be there. This was all around really dumb, and you're the a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for backing up my brother in saying our step-sibling's mom and siblings shouldn't be invited to his birthday party while our step-siblings were there? My brother will be 14 in March, and my mom wanted to throw him a bigger than normal birthday party to make up for not having any celebration with others outside a household since 2019. My brother was really excited and asked if our grandparents, our aunts, and cousins could be there. And mom said it was just for her side, and that our grandparents would probably do their own thing with him. He asked if our stepdad's ex-wife and her kids, 2 from before her time with our stepdad and 3 came after, would be there. And she said of course, because they're family, and they're our step-siblings' bio-siblings. He said that wasn't fair, because they aren't his family, and why are we trying to include them? My mom said they are family, and we all want to get along and make sure everyone is treated just like family should. My stepdad said it would mean a lot to his kids, our step-siblings, who are 10 and 8. But my brother said if his family couldn't be there, then the step-siblings didn't get to have their family at his birthday party. I said I agreed, and I told them I wouldn't want them at mine either because they are not family to us. Our step-siblings were there and got upset, and asked why their mom and siblings couldn't be there. Our mom and stepdad assured them they would be there, but my brother said it wasn't fair, and said he didn't want them there and didn't care about them. Mom was furious and yelled at him, and I told her she couldn't expect him to want them there, or to have strangers there just for our step-siblings, when she literally just said we couldn't have our family there because it was just for her side. Mom was angry at me, told me I'm the oldest and should be responsible and not encourage him. She said blended family should be about inclusion and welcoming everyone in. I told her that she was going against what she said by excluding our dad's family. She told me that's different because they are no longer anything to do with her. I told her that didn't mean they weren't something to do with us, and that dad's death did not erase the loving grandparents and aunts we had on his side. She told me I was being unfair and should not have agreed in front of my step-siblings, because now they're upset and don't understand why we don't like their family. Am I the a-hole? The people my brother does not want at his party are not our step-siblings, but their mom and their siblings from their mom. They're not related to us. is their dad who is married to our mom, and his ex-wife and her other children from different men have nothing to do with my brother. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You are absolutely right. And it's good you stood up for your brother. The wrong thing here is that your mother is limiting this to her side of the family, completely excluding your deceased father's side. She isn't even considering inviting your grandparents, aunts, cousins, etc., despite the fact that you and your brother love them and would like them to be there. Let's keep in mind that a party is supposed to be for your brother. The other weird thing is for your mother to be so fond of her husband's ex's children, who aren't even his kids. I hope I didn't get this wrong. Your stepdad has some kids from a previous marriage, your step-siblings. Your stepdad's ex got remarried and had additional children. Those children have an active father in their life, right? Why is your mother so desperate to include some other family's children? Why does she want to include the ex-wife of her husband to her child's 14th birthday? That's far-fetched. She needs to decide if the party is small, just a few close family members, or if this is a huge party with just about everyone, in which case your father's side should also be invited. You got it mostly right. Stepdad's ex had 2 kids when they met, 2 with him and then 3 after they divorced. Those 5 kids are not my stepdads, are apparently invited along with their mom/stepdad's ex. I know my stepdad and mom get along with his ex okay, but she and her kids are really not people my brother and I consider part of the family at all. Not the a-hole. Your mom is applying rules based on what she is related to, not based on who the honoree, your brother, is related to. It sounds like there was a blended family due to death, not abuse or neglect or anything, so it seems weird for her to exclude half your family. And she is not even related to them. It is her stepchildren's mother's family. She is honestly just bending backwards to please her husband, which is just ridiculous. Her child's birthday party should have their family. It's more likely she just hates her old in-laws and doesn't want to be around them. She tried disguising this with the "my family only" excuse, but shot herself in the foot by then inviting people who are clearly not her family. She is being an idiot for making dumb excuses. I have no idea whether her dislike for the old in-laws is justified or not, but it would have been better to be upfront. I don't think it's fair to blame her new husband for this situation. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not moving my wedding date? My fiancé and I recently got engaged, and when looking at dates, we realized our anniversary falls on a Saturday this year. Perfect, right? We immediately start planning because it's approximately 9 months out and we have to move quick to pull a wedding together. We told everyone the potential date this weekend and all seemed well. Monday, I get a phone call from my father. He insists that I move the date because my mother has a yoga retreat that weekend. I tell him that this date means a lot to me and I would prefer to keep it if there was any way to move the retreat. There is, but it's expensive. I offer to pay for this change out of my wedding budget, essentially having the amount that I can spend on the most important event of my life. Yesterday, I was told that they would not be taking my offer to pay to move the retreat, and that we're expected to move the wedding instead. I haven't put money on my venue yet, so they think I should be fine with giving up the chance to marry on a date that means a lot to me. It became a massive fight, and now my parents and I aren't speaking. My father accused me of caring about a date more than I care about my mother. I told him that it felt as though they were choosing yoga over their own daughter. Your parents are prioritizing a yoga retreat over your wedding? I told him that it felt as though they were choosing yoga over their own daughter. They 100% are. Have the wedding without them. Not the a-hole. And I would be petty and put on the photos why they weren't at the wedding. Opie's parents suck. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. First of all, congratulations on your upcoming wedding. However, I'm sorry to say your parents have made it perfectly clear where on their priority list you, their child, is. It is apparently below yoga. And you are right, she is choosing yoga over you. A yoga retreat is something that can be done anytime. Your wedding will only happen once. Don't let your father say you don't care about your mother. He is gaslighting you. Also, has Opie actually talked to the mother about this? Seems like Dad is passing messages back and forth. Is Daddy-O playing the old triangulation game? Not the a-hole. Your parents are being absurdly self-centered. The polite thing for them to do would be to reschedule or cancel the retreat without ever telling you, so as not to impinge on your wedding planning excitement. Just to make sure, because this is honestly so over the top it's baffling to me, is your mom attending the retreat or is she leading it? Attending. They have this retreat yearly, and there is also makeup dates for the classes she would miss. Wow, they want you to move your wedding for something she goes to on a regular basis? You are even more not the a-hole than I thought before. There is no reason that she can't skip something that happens yearly for a unique event. Like someone else said, they shouldn't have even mentioned it to you. Am I the a-hole? I kicked my husband's sister and her daughter out of my mother's funeral. My mother passed 20 days ago. I'm a mess. I can barely keep up with work, as well as taking care of my younger sisters who are heavily grieving. Before I talk about what went down at the funeral, I'll talk about my husband's older sister, 44. She's like a mother to him. His mother died when he was 8, so his sister basically raised him. Me and her don't agree on many things. She can be disrespectful and rude. She tries to boss me around and gets involved in my marriage a lot. She has a daughter, niece, that she uses or trains to do nasty things to me. Like when she had her daughter ruin my car paint, or when she had her hide my jewelry, or when she caused me an argument with my husband by lying, saying I banned her from her uncle's house. She's 17, so at this point she's not a kid and should be aware of what her mother's doing, but they both equally disrespect me, so I'm not surprised. My sister-in-law came to mother's funeral and brought her daughter who was wearing an inappropriate outfit and kept acting mean while me and my sisters were crying. I remember sister-in-law was sitting, loudly laughing with her daughter and playing with their phones, and then both started eating during the burial service. I was getting mad, but I ignored them. Until my niece's phone started playing the ding dong, the witch is dead. My sisters heard it several times. I walked up to her to ask about it, and she said it was just a ringtone. I asked her if she thought this was appropriate, but my sister-in-law got involved and told me it was no big deal, then asked me for a charger so they could finish the video they were watching. I kid you not, I absolutely lost it in them both. I yelled at my sister-in-law to take her daughter and leave. My brother-in-law, her husband, came to talk to me, but I blatantly told him to take his family and leave. And where's my husband? Sitting watching while I argue with almost his entire family, as they tried to get me to let it go. I refused to let them stay for a minute, and demanded they leave or get security involved. That's when my husband got involved, so I told him he could leave too if he kept defending them. They left, and everyone was watching. I felt so awful, and when I returned to my mother's house, my husband started arguing, saying that his niece is a kid, and whatever she did, I should have discussed the issue privately, not make a joke out of them and kicking his sister out, then threatened to kick him out as well, in front of everyone. He said I was looking for an excuse to disrespect his sister and his niece, and what better excuse than my mother's funeral, right? That's what he said. He said I was at fault here to think that I could mistreat his sister and niece and kick them out, then expect to get a free pass because my mother is dead, basically claiming I messed up and ruined my own mother's funeral. He called me a piece of work, then headed out. That's all that's happened. The family apologized on their behalf. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Get rid of the husband. This is the correct answer. He allowed them to mistreat you at your mother's funeral. He sucks. Yep, this is totally where I'm at too. How many of the niece's 17 years had she been pulling this disrespectful crap on you, and is still blaming you for not rolling over and taking it? No, not the a-hole. Your husband is the a-hole and weak as hell. His family are a-holes. Go to just no significant other and just no family. They have advice for dealing with crappy people. Also, ban them from your house indefinitely. That's a boundary you need to stick to. Hubby can see them somewhere else. That's just gross they would do that. I hope your hubby is sleeping on the couch. He sucks big time. What a loser. I hope he's sleeping on his sister's couch. Permanently. Not the a-hole. My blood went cold with rage at the thought of that ringtone playing at the funeral. I'm so incredibly sorry for the loss of your mother, and your husband's nightmare of a family ruining it. Thankfully, your mother's love and legacy will continue to live on untarnished in her children. But it may be time to kick husband to the curb. This. Hate to add to Opie's loss and mourning, but time to add hubby to the list of lost ones. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not opening up my home for my friend? I, 30 female, met Cassie, 30 female, fake name, when I was 7 years old and we became thick friends soon. I grew up in a very abusive Indian home with helicopter parents and was kicked out when I was 20 because I came home after curfew, 7 p.m. For non-Indians, it is unusual to work while in college and to stay away from home until you're married. I asked Cassie, who at the time was living alone in an apartment that her parents own, if I can move in with her for the time being. And she said, sorry, no, I want to experience living alone. I felt very hurt at the time and ended up couch surfing at some friends' homes and later moved in with my then boyfriend. Present situation. We don't talk much, just text each other sometimes. I live with my boyfriend in a 2-bedroom house with our dog, and she got married at 25 and is now 7 months pregnant. Her husband kicked her out for infidelity, and turns out the baby is not his. She has no place to go and asked me if she can stay for a while. The thing is, she doesn't work, is 7 months pregnant, and I don't know how long she'll stay as she can't tell her family back in India that she's getting divorced. Plus, I feel very salty about how she treated me back then. I said no, that it's not a very good idea, and she started screaming saying that she's pregnant, and I'm heartless. I hung up on her. Not day-haul considering how she treated you when you needed a home. Plus, it's on her for cheating on her husband. I wouldn't let that kind of drama in my house either, personally. And if the OP lets her stay, she'll probably never get rid of her and a child. In fact, she'll be left paying for the baby. Since she is a cheater, I wouldn't be surprised if she tried to cheat with OP's husband. Not day-haul. She wasn't a friend when you needed one, so she isn't a friend. Not day-haul. Just tell her you want the experience of living with your boyfriend. It's not fair that you should take the responsibility for another 2 people. Also, where's the baby daddy? Why can't you live with him? Can't live with baby daddy when you're single and ready to mingle until he finds out about your husband. Then no husband and no baby daddy. Not day-haul. You don't owe her anything. It was your friend who made life-changing and irresponsible decisions that caused her life to spiral. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for still not letting my sister into my house after she made me miss daughter's birth? Frankly, I don't know if I'm being an a-hole. Family seems to think I am, so just want to know what others here think. My sister, 25 female, was going to meet her dad. Not my dad, by the way. For the first time in almost 18/19 years, and she was really nervous. She asked me to go with her for support. He was staying at some hotel about 30 minutes away, and the whole ride over there, my sister had my phone to give me directions. My wife was calling me because she'd gone into labor. Then my mother-in-law was calling me too. My sister put my phone on Do Not Disturb without me knowing, and erased the notifications. I didn't even realize it until after we were leaving from having lunch with him an hour and a half later that my wife's been calling me. All my sister told me was I had a missed call, more like dozens. When I found out, I was yelling at her the whole ride to the hospital. She apologized many times. Her only excuse was this was a big emotional moment for her meeting her dad, and she was scared doing it alone knowing how her anxiety is. This was the only time they'd have to see each other since he was leaving in a few days and wouldn't be back for months. I really couldn't believe it. By the time we got there, my daughter had already been born a half hour. Don't get me wrong, I was so happy to know my daughter and wife were okay. But I was also devastated to have missed the birth of my first child. I couldn't look at my sister. All I told her was to get an Uber to take her home because I didn't want her near me right now. My daughter's almost 4 weeks old and almost everyone vaccinated has come to see her. Last weekend, my parents came over with my sister in the car, but I said I don't want her in my home right now. They got mad and left early. I keep hearing it from my family that I'm being completely unfair, treating my sister like an outcast but not letting her in my home. But I'm just still angry at her right now, and I don't think I have it in me to be in her presence. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She knew exactly what she was doing. She made you miss something once in a lifetime. And I can't imagine how important that must have been for you. And the fact she did it to go see her deadbeat father. That's tragic and ironic. And your parents can't even see it your way a little, it seems. You have every right to be furious. Her defense was she thought my wife would have been in labor for hours, or at least hoped she would, long enough for us to do both. I'm so furious. And it never occurred to her that you would want to be with your wife during labor? She's just trying to make excuses for her awful behavior. Not Dayhal. I think Opie should ask his family how he'd supposed to feel if something had gone wrong and he was sat at lunch somewhere. Thank goodness that it sounds like the birth was quick and straightforward, but it could so easily not have happened like that. It sounds like the family need to stop and take a moment to actually think through the gravity of what happened before demanding that Opie just move on because family. Not Dayhal. You know what else is a big emotional moment? The birth of your child. She didn't have the right to prioritize meeting her dad over you being present for a huge moment in your life. You can choose how to respond to that. They don't get to manage how you feel. A moment that Opie could only go through one time. Sister's dad wouldn't be back for months, sure. But he'd be back at some point, and she could see him then. Opie can't be there to see the birth of his first child twice. Not Dayhal. She didn't just make you miss the birth of your baby. She's personally responsible for your wife being denied the comfort of having her partner by her side during labor and delivery. Birth is still potentially deadly for both mothers and babies, and your sister risks your wife's and daughter's health and lives by interfering in your ability to be contacted. The fact that your family's sticking up for her makes me think she's got some sort of spoiled princess complex and will likely never apologize. And if she doesn't, your relationship with her is probably not salvageable. Last story. Am I the a-hole for saying no to my sister and her family staying with us until their house is safe to return to? My sister and her family had to leave their house because of a mold and bedbug issue. House is getting worked on. They need 6 weeks. She asked me the day before, like the day they found out about the second issue, if they could stay with me and my husband for 6 weeks. I said no. I knew it would cause blowback, but honestly wasn't really expecting my parents to be so pissed. My sister was angry too. But the truth is, I could not live with her again. She gets on my nerves, and I never truthfully liked her as a person. I love her, but prefer not to be around her much. She's bossy as hell, and loves to get her own way. Sometimes not even communicating something that she's planning so you can't say no, or does something she wants knowing you won't want it, and doesn't consider other people's taste. And I just know I would not be able to live with her again. When I moved out, it was such a relief to have space from her. And I know that I get more annoyed with her when we see each other more often. 2 years ago, we went on a family vacation. Me and my husband and kids, my sister, her husband and their kids, and our parents. And my sister decided, despite me and my husband saying no, to book everyone into this restaurant for a meal, and then complained when we didn't show up, which led to a fight where I told her I didn't care if she lost money. I told her I didn't like the food, and she was told clearly that we were not going. Looking back, I regret going, but I was hoping and trying to have things be better. But they weren't. Anyway, my parents are helping her pay for a hotel, but everyone is calling me an a-hole for not helping her, but especially her kids. Especially when I already know how long it will be for. My sister told me to screw myself, and my parents said they were ashamed of me. Our parents live out of state, hence them not staying here. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole at the word bedbug. Indeed. I wouldn't even let any of them in the door. Their stuff is likely infested. This. I stayed at a hotel for 6 days for a company-sponsored event out of state. I had all of these scratchy bleeding welts and identified them as bedbugs. I was livid, and my bites were horribly itchy. When I got home, my wife didn't even let me enter the house. I stripped down to underwear and my clothing went straight into the washing machine. Washed each load twice and tried to kill everything. Kept the suitcase outdoors in the shed for 6 months. Don't mess around with bedbugs. They itch worse than mosquitoes and are expensive to remediate. Not the a-hole. Even without the issues between the two of you, having their belongings in your home puts you at risk of getting a bedbug infestation. This. I wouldn't let them near me till they're bedbug free, to be honest. And tell your sister that she can bring her bed bugs and mold spores to a hotel, instead of bringing them to your house where they can start a fresh infestation. That, combined with a hostile relationship, is guaranteed to have you regretting this on the first day, and as you pay for pest control and mold remediation after they leave. Additionally, if there is such a problem with their house that requires them to be out for 6 weeks, what is their homeowner's insurance doing about this? My insurance will temporarily house me in a short-term rental in such an event. Why do they need to come stay with you? Don't set yourself on fire to keep your sister warm. Not today, Hole. Not today, Hole. Sounds like bedbugs and mold weren't the only toxic pests in that house. If your parents love her so much, they can house her in their state. The fact that they've decided to put her up in a hotel instead says it all. Not really. They live in another state, so can't let them stay. Her husband would be away from his job, the kids away from their school. Am I the a-hole for not letting my sister-in-law stay at my house because I prefer my dogs? She doesn't like them. With the pandemic, she 19 female lost her job and stopped paying rent. And now she was kicked out of her apartment and has nowhere to go. Her parents live in another city and we are her only relatives here. That's why she asked my 24 female, husband 28 male, if she can stay with us until she finds a new job, and we said yes. But then she asked what we were going to do with our dogs. I asked her what she meant, and she said she couldn't stay with us if we weren't sending the dogs somewhere else because she's afraid of them. They are 2 Great Danes and a Greyhound, and they are all very friendly. They've never bit or hurt anyone, and they would never do something like that. I've had a Greyhound for 8 years, and the other 2 for 5 years, and that's why I know they would never do something like that. My husband and I told her that if she wants to stay here, she will have to learn to live with them. That they are really important to us, and that this is also their house and they won't go anywhere. She said that she's scared to death of them, and that she could never live with them because of what happened to her when she was a child. When she was about 5, a Greyhound bit her and left a big scar on her arm, and since then, she hates dogs like mine. So we told her that she can't stay here, and now the whole family's mad at us. My in-laws think that we are being insensitive, and my mother-in-law's angry with me. Especially because she says that my sister-in-law is like my sister, and that it's not fair for me to do that to her. And she said that because I've been with my husband since I was 14, and his whole family always treated me as if I was another member of their family. But honestly, that doesn't even matter to me. My dogs are like my kids, and I love them as much as I love her, and I'm not going to change my mind. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. The dogs are your kids. That person is an adult, and she can go stay with another family member if they think life's so bad for her. She is not your responsibility. The dogs are. She should go home to her parents. She needs to learn compromise or life is going to be very hard. To be fair, a deep-rooted fear from the attack as a child is enough to understand a sister-in-law not compromising. On the other hand, she knows the dogs are there and should have never asked them to get rid of them and found another option. Sister-in-law is an a-hole. Start a group chat with all the in-laws. Sister-in-law is about to be homeless. Why haven't you all pitched in to pay for an apartment and expenses for her? You are abandoning her. She's helpless, deserves this, etc. You know, hubby and I would love to contribute, but because our dogs are so expensive, we can't. Then laugh out loud. And laugh out loud even more. Not today, hole. This is my favorite response. Perfect amount of evil. Not today, hole. Her fear is understandable, but her request to get rid of the dogs is unreasonable. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my sister live with me because I don't like dogs? So, I'm male 27 and I have my own house, and would say I'm fairly well-to-do. My sister managed to get caught up in some MLM pyramid scheme and is in debt and without a job. My sister has 2 dogs, a shepherd and an Akita. I don't like dogs, and never will. It's just my problem. Now, my sister wants to move in with me so she can start looking for a job and save money in rent. I told her she would not be allowed because I did not want her dogs. She told me how well trained they were and that this was an emotional support animal. I hate how people can say the dog is an emotional support animal, and you're now expected to let the dog come in with you. It's literally no different from a dog you picked up on the street and became an owner, because that's what an emotional support animal is, a pet. I told her no, and she called me heartless, and that I could put the dog in one room. This would not work because my sister would need to walk and groom the dog, which would eventually let it go all over my house, and keeping it in a confined place is cruel. She called me an a-hole for letting her suffer. Am I the a-hole? And it's about emotional support animal. I think the concept is good and there are some people who really need them. But so many people abuse the system so they can take their dogs anywhere. Most people I know with dogs will pull out a doctor's note and bam, emotional support animal. You can do whatever the hell you want. Some people even buy emotional support animal vets off Amazon if they want to go the extra mile. Not the a-hole. People on here really pretending that the fake emotional support animal industry isn't a thriving one. It is freaking massive. Literally every person with a dog tells me 1, it is an emotional support animal, or 2, it's a rescue. Like you really got a puppy purebred golden retriever from a rescue. A local lady made a massive fuzz over a bookshop not letting her re-SA dog in. 1, dog is a Chihuahua. 2, it had a history of pooping in the shop and nipping at people and growling at them. Owner had enough, and woman made a massive outcry, even staring the local fish wrapper. Everyone laughed at it. Okay, let's put aside the whole ESA thing because that's not really what's at issue here. What's at issue is that, as much as you support your sister, you don't like dogs, and if she moves in with you, she'll be bringing 2 extremely big, hairy dogs. I'm a massive dog lover, and because I'm a massive dog lover, I'm going to tell you that she's an idiot. There is no way that you can safely or healthily keep an Akita in one room or a shepherd. I'm assuming that you mean some kind of German shepherd. It would be cruel if not dangerous. It's just not a suitable environment for the dogs, especially dogs of those breeds. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole even as a dog owner. They shed hair, and even the best trained, well-groomed ones introduce a smell. You would also have to live with things in your space you hate. Neither you or the dogs need that. Next story. Am I the a-hole for being honest with my sister that I would not become a stepmother again if I knew how it would be? This might sound and look bad from the title alone, so I'm prepared for the sub's decision. My younger sister, 26 female, is dating a man who has 2 kids with an ex. I, 46 female, have been with my husband for more than 17 years. When we met, he was a divorced dad of 3. My stepkids are now adults. My husband is a grandfather. I can honestly say it has not been easy, and I don't think it was the perfect role for me. I love my family, so I wouldn't walk away from them now. But I also know there has been more heartbreak in our family lifetime than there has been heartwarming. I say this even with 2 wonderful children out of it, and a happy marriage outside of it. I was always the outsider, never really considered family by my stepkids. I'm not grandma, while my husband is grandpa. And even though there is no tension or fighting, just indifference, I'm not the kind of person who can't have their heart break a little more, realizing even after all these years, they could walk away from me easily. And while they're not awful to my bios, they definitely don't include them as siblings the way they do each other. It's tough. I don't think I was the best suited for that side of this. So anyway, my sister and I always promised each other honesty. I'm so much older than her, and I tried to baby her a bit too much when she was a lot younger, which she hated. So when she asked me did I have any regrets and would I do it again, I was honest. And when she asked me if I thought she would be able for it, I was also honest. That I don't think she is, because she's even more sensitive than I am, and she's already going in with expectations that might not be met. Now she's mad, and said I was an a-hole and I should have lied. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. She asked for your honest opinion and you obliged. Yeah, don't lie about this stuff if it involves kids. Not the a-hole. Never ask questions if you aren't willing to hear the answers. Sister asks Opie about her honest opinion. Opie gives honest opinion that sister is too sensitive. Sister gets mad because she doesn't think she's too sensitive. Not the a-hole. If you had lied, she would have come to you later and been angry that you didn't tell her the truth. I suspect that your sister may already be discovering that being a step-parent is really hard and is taking out her frustrations on you. Not Dayhall. Being a step-parent is extremely hard. Truly, no one can understand what it entails and how taxing it is unless they have lived it themselves. You are right to answer her question with honesty. It doesn't mean she will cease her current relationship. People often need to learn things through their own experiences. From one stepmom to another. I feel you. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my sister have the bigger room? Bit of backstory. My sister, 22, and her boyfriend live at home with our parents while they save for a mortgage. I, 27, live with my husband, 32, and our 2 children. Female 4-year-old and male 21 months old. My parents and my husband and I decided that we wanted to rent a larger house together so we could both save and so they can offer more assistance with childcare as I am starting uni in September. We would split bills proportionally to current living costs and to allow us to save the same amount. My parents would pay £1,500 and my husband and I would pay £800 to £900. My sister and her boyfriend would be moving along with my parents while they save. They currently and would continue to pay my parents £100 per month each. She works full-time as a nurse and he works part-time in retail. The long-term goal is to jointly buy a house with my parents, so my dad is able to retire comfortably and we all have lower living costs. So far, every property we have looked at, my sister has demanded the bigger bedroom, excluding the master, that would be my parents' room, using the excuse of either the smaller room being closer to the kids. Not the case, and when it was, I agree the smaller room would be better located for my husband and I. And that she spends more time in her room than I do, and she wants the space to fit a vanity. I have not sat quietly and agreed with this, and argued my point of it being my long-term home that I share with our parents, and she will only be there temporarily and is only coming as she is still living at home. When I have raised this as an issue, my mom got upset with me and said she isn't getting involved, and we will just call the whole arrangement off. Bottom line is that, since we lost my grandparents 5 years ago, my mom has treated my sister with kid gloves and basically let her have her own way on everything as she can be very combative and stubborn. I want to know, am I the a-hole for not letting my sister have what she wants, then switching rooms once she has moved out, or should I stick to my guns? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole, but by the sound of things, I wouldn't buy a house with your parents until your sister isn't living with them. She's very cheeky for someone who is barely paying for anything. The very definition of a choosy beggar. If your mom won't have your back, wait and buy later or just don't buy with them. I personally would not buy property with the parents regardless if they were able to convince their daughter to live away from home. I say this because what happens when the parents pass away, I'm sure both Opie and her sister would jointly inherit the property. Opie will have to deal with the sister, and it does not sound like it would be amicable. Not Dayhall. It sounds like your sister knows she has good thing going and wants to keep it. She doesn't plan to move out anytime soon. I'd be advising that if they, your sister and her partner, do move with you, that they have X amount of time to save and leave, or that they pay the appropriate amount to live there. If you have the type of relationship with your parents where you can have an honest talk, I suggest sitting them down and discussing the options. If you don't have the type of relationship where you can have an honest talk, don't buy a house with them. We own, and share, a multifamily with my mother, and it only works because we have clear expectations, and we each have our own separate living space. Even still, it was an adjustment at first. Not Dayhall. Stick to your guns. You're investing in this house, not her. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for saying I want to spend time with my mom, not babysit? I, 21 female, live in a different state to my mom and stepdad. I went to stay with them for a few days a couple of weeks ago. I was there to spend time with my mom because it had been a long while, and honestly, I miss her. Talking over the phone just isn't the same. She ended up needing to fill in on a couple of late shifts, so some of the nights we had plans I was just hanging out. My stepdad's daughter, stepsister technically since we lived together for 7 years of my childhood, has kids and dropped them off with my stepdad. He then decided he wanted to go out and asked me to babysit. I said no. He told me it would be a great chance to get to know my nieces. I told him I was there to spend time with my mom, not babysit. He got pissed. But I had never met those girls before. I had not seen his daughter in years. She really had some issues with her dad marrying my mom, and I was her easiest target as a kid younger than her, and she basically decided I wasn't welcome in her life. They did not have any idea who I was. He introduced me as their aunt, and they told him their mom said they had no aunt or grandma, just him. So that to me was a very good reason for my no should be respected. But it pushed, and it told me I was rude saying I wasn't there to babysit, etc. My mom told me I did nothing wrong, and it was inappropriate to ask that of me when he knows even she is not allowed to watch the kids or be in the house with them without him, per his daughter, so crap hit the fan between them. But my aunt, my mom's sister, told me I could have been less of an a-hole and this might have blown over. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. He was trying to shirk responsibility and got caught. Now they are gaslighting you. You're dead right about him. That's exactly what he was doing. Not the a-hole. If you aren't trusted enough to meet them properly, then they aren't your responsibility to watch them. Stepdad sounds like he's guilt-tripping. I doubt she knew I was going to be there, honestly. Sounds like his daughter would have went ape if I had agreed. Not the a-hole. He was wrong. I'm glad that your mom backed you up. My aunt, my mom's sister, told me I could have been less of an a-hole and this might have blown over. Yeah, right. If by blown over, she means giant crap show of apocalyptic proportions. As soon as their mother found out that Opie, who according to her doesn't actually exist, watched her kids, she would lose her mind. She doesn't even let Opie's mother watch them without their grandfather being present.